So this story happened about a decade ago when I was about 7 or 8. I used to live in South Korea, and one of the major differences it has with the West is that nearly everyone lives in 10-story apartments. Because of that, you can't avoid using elevators, which leads to a high number of elevator-related crimes in South Korea. Anyway, I returned home from school like normal. I went to my apartment building, and I waited for the elevator to come. A man boarded the elevator with me. I'm not sure how I remember all of this, especially since I have a really bad memory and I was quite young back then, but the man was essentially dressed exactly like the stereotypical criminals you see in dramas. He had a black cap, black jacket, sunglasses, and a freaking medical mask. It was creepy, but I don't think I thought much of it at that point. I pressed the 6th floor button, and I distinctly remember him pressing the button for the top floor. One thing to note is that this is done by most elevator criminals to make sure that they don't get off before you. The doors to my floor opened, but when I tried to get off, the guy suddenly grabbed onto my backpack and didn't let me go. I watched bewildered as the door closed. I quickly smashed the open button and the door started to open again, but the guy still held on to my backpack. I wasn't getting the hint, and I was wondering why this guy was so intense in getting me annoyed. Then for some reason, the guy picked me up. 1 minute I was trying to get off my elevator, and then I suddenly found my legs dangling 5 feet in midair. I finally understood that the man was a criminal with bad intentions, and I started struggling, punching and kicking in midair. All of a sudden, he just let me drop to the floor, and I ran the hell out of the elevator, screaming my ass off. Not sure why, but even after I told my mom about the event, we didn't think to call the police. Now that I think back, we clearly should have. He was probably a soon-to-be registered pedophile or kidnapper. For a long while after the event, I only took the stairwells instead of elevators. I am a receptionist at a small hotel. Due to only having 40 rooms, it isn't viable to have 2 members of the staff working at the same time, as there is very little to do at the busiest of times. So, I am the lone worker and woman from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. The man was called Dr. Andrews, and he quickly became a regular, staying with us most of the week, presumably for work like most of our guests did. From the moment I first checked him in, I was getting very uneasy vibes from him. He would hunch over the reception desk and try to bridge the gap between us as much as possible, leering at me over his glasses. When I say leering, I mean wide-eyed and intense, accompanied by very audible breathing. He wasn't much to look at either. He actually looked like a stereotypical predator, late 50s with a grizzled beard, quite tall and overweight. He would always try to initiate conversation, and I was obliged to be polite. It was my job, after all, to be friendly and welcoming to guests. But it would always turn slightly sinister, and he would ask probing questions about when my shift ended and if I lived alone or with family. Obviously, the red light popped up straight away in my head, and I gave the general vague answers. He would never break the lusty eye contact with me either, which was so damn creepy. After a few days, I noticed him becoming very determined to see me. We had a CCTV in the back room, and I would watch him hover about in the reception for a long time, watching and waiting. I knew he didn't need anything, as there's a buzzer at reception for guests which pages the receptionist. The odd time I'd purposely go out, he would act like he was just passing through, pretending that he hadn't been standing around for minutes. Soon though, he began asking me out on dates and asking for my phone number. I got very uncomfortable and I firmly told him that I do not give my contact information out or go on dates with people that I do not know. I wish that instead I had told him that no, I would not go out with him because he was old enough to be my father and that he shouldn't be harassing younger women. But that was more than my job's worth. Dr. Andrews took it quite badly, and I didn't see him until the rest of the evening, until 10 p.m. I was preparing all the banking sheets and boring paperwork for the shifts, and when I caught a glimpse of him on the CCTV, he actually pressed the buzzer to my surprise, and I ventured out to find out what he wanted. He explained that he had locked his key inside his room and wondered if I could let him in. It wasn't a strange request. Lots of guests do this as we are yet to have the key card doors installed. I immediately went to the spare key cabinet, but a few were missing and unfortunately, one of the missing keys was a spare to his room. I felt a bit apprehensive, but I came out of the reception and said that I would have to open his door for him. As he was following me down the corridor, I felt him getting very close. I knew he would be getting an eyeful, and I tried to ignore his peevish tendencies. We came to his door and I avoided looking at him as much as I could, but as I was unlocking his door, I felt a slight pressure on my back, like he was pushing me into the door. My mind hadn't time to register it before another guest, Mike, came through the set of doors. Mike was a regular and knew me quite well. He noticed that something was wrong and shouted to Dr. Andrews. I turned to see Mike in that moment and saw that Dr. Andrews had his arm against the door frame behind me. He quickly pulled it away and then scrambled into his room. My heartbeat thudded for a moment as I walked over to Mike, who asked if I was okay. We walked back to the reception and he said that it looked like Dr. Andrews was about to push me into that room. He had blocked my exit with his arm, and being a big guy, he could have easily overpowered me. The thing that struck me most was the fact that Dr. Andrews never came back out of his room. If you lock your key in your room, you're obviously on your way out somewhere. So it was apparent that he had organized the whole thing to get me into his room, which is very creepy and unsettling. Dr. Andrews never checked in again. As a brief background, I am a small 22-year-old woman going to school in a large Midwestern university. This occurred last year when I was living in a 2-bedroom apartment with a friend of mine. This apartment was your typical cheaply made college apartment, with walls and floors so thin that I could hear the downstairs neighbors. There were also no deadbolts on the door. My roommate at the time was having some issues, and so she had to move out the second semester to go to a treatment facility. We tried to find someone to sublease her room, but we had no luck. So being the poor college student that I am, I sealed her off her room as soon as she left. I closed her vents, kept her door shut, and shoved a rug under the door. This was all to save money by not having to heat her room. She had been gone for several months, and I never went in her room or opened her door because I had no need to. One day I got home from classes though, and her door was standing wide open. I immediately called my mom to be on the phone with me, but I didn't find anything else out of the ordinary in the apartment. Nothing was stolen, there was no sign of anyone breaking in, and there was no one in our apartment. This made me a bit anxious, but nothing else seemed out of place. Fast forward a few weeks, and I'm in my apartment late at night. I decide to take a shower, so I head into my bathroom. Right before I'm about to hop in the shower, I remember that I wanted to listen to music, so I run into my room to get my speaker. While in there, I noticed that I accidentally left my light on, so I flipped it off as I headed back to the bathroom. I showered uneventfully, and I walked out of the bathroom to head back to my room. This is when I noticed that my bedroom light is on, even though I had made a point to turn it off a few minutes before. I looked down the hallway and I noticed that the door to our water heater is open. Now I should note that this is just a small closet with no room for storage, so I literally never opened it. I panicked at this point and I locked myself in the bathroom until my boyfriend could get there to search my apartment. He arrived and once again, nothing was out of the ordinary. He thought I had imagined the whole thing and that some sort of pressure difference must have opened the door. At this point, I felt silly, but I was far too scared of my apartment to sleep there alone. I made my boyfriend sleep with me, and while he thought I was being silly, he obliged to make me feel better. The final event happened after I had been gone for a week for spring break. Before I left, I made sure that all the appliances and electronics were unplugged, and then I headed out for a week of relaxation. After break, I arrived back in my college town around mid-afternoon. It was a perfectly sunny day, and I was feeling great after a week of break. And when I walked into the apartment, everything seemed to be in order. I unpacked all my things and then headed into the kitchen for a snack. That is when I noticed a loaf of bread sitting on my microwave. I don't generally eat much bread, and so I know I hadn't purchased it, and I have no idea how it got there. Upon further inspection of the apartment, I found that the TV had been plugged back in as well. I was terrified, but despite what I thought were obvious signs that someone had been in my apartment, my boyfriend still thought that I was imagining the whole thing. I still don't know what caused any of these things to happen. Those were the last out of place things that I noticed, and I moved out a couple of months later. Despite what my boyfriend thinks though, I know that I was not just imagining these things, and I still get the chills when I think about someone living in my home. When I was 6 and my brother 10, we came to notice that we always had a cop car following us around. This went on for a couple of months during the summer. We did not know what was going on until later when we moved far away. My mom explained to us that for 2 or 3 months, some man would call the house when my dad was not home and tell her how he would rape and kill us. People may ask, why would the cops take this so seriously? Well, the man was aware when my mom was alone with us. He would tell her what we were wearing and doing on a particular day. The man also knew our names. He would call from random phone booths around the city where we lived, showing that he was willing to drive really far away just to make the call. And finally, the Montreal boy slasher was active at that time. After we moved away, this all stopped and nothing ever happened. Still, this all makes my mom go mental because she says that the first time he called, he was very polite and had a very pleasant tone in his voice. The first time he called, he told her that he knew my dad. They had a brief conversation about this and that, nothing special, until he said,
"Do you know where your kids Sam and Tom are?"
And then the man slowly put down the receiver. The memory of this call gives my mom shivers to this day. I work for a tour company that operates out of a large hotel downtown. It's a conference hotel, so in the shoulder season when our tour company is just starting to run trips again, the hotel is extremely quiet in the mornings. The lobby is massive and the office I work in is down a fairly out-of-the-way hall. There are no guest rooms in the area, just a gift shop and an exit to the outdoor pool. I open the shop in the mornings and prepare for the day's tours, so I'm there before everyone else. Our office front is completely glass, and the hotel guests often stop outside to peer in, to check out our pictures and watch the flat screen TV. It's a little like working in a fishbowl sometimes. So it's a Monday and I'm juggling my coffee, backpack, and keys while walking towards the office. I turn down our hallway and I'm early enough that the hotel lights are still dimmed. The gift shop is closed and the hallway is lonelier than usual. I'm looking down, trying to find the right key, and out of the corner of my eye, I register a man standing perfectly still and staring into the office. Like I said, this isn't uncommon, but I was super early and not stoked on having to answer questions yet, so I avoided eye contact and unlocked the office door. I mumbled something about being open in 20 minutes, and I ducked into the office, locking the door behind me. I then went into the back, got changed, and put my stuff down, and I basically got prepared for the day. I walked into the main room area with the intention of starting up the computer, and I stopped. The man is still there. Not a big deal, but I had been in the back for 10 minutes, and our office isn't quite that interesting. He's standing completely still, and is staring intently through the glass. Okay, I think, he's watching the TV. I walked around the desk and I sit down, but now it's really awkward because I'm sitting directly in front of the guy and he is not looking at the TV. I try to make eye contact and the man just looks right through me. Not at the TV, not at me, and not at the wall. Just a complete 1,000-yard stare. I know that it's going to be a full tour that day, so I have to start preparing everything. But the guy staring and not moving is just too weird. I get up, unlock the door, and ask him if he has a question about our trip. I actually get a good look at him, and he looks so normal. He's wearing a suit, and he looks like he's about 40. But something about him is really starting to bother me at this point. He's standing so still, it's ominous. His suit looks crumpled, maybe slept in, and he has a brownish red smear on the side of his neck. When I ask him if he needs anything, he starts to sway from side to side slowly, and I decide to interpret this for a no. A little freaked out now, I return to the office and start getting ready. The guy still doesn't move. He just stares in the window. 10 minutes passes of more staring, and I have had it. The hotel is quiet enough that I don't want to unlock the door with a weird guy staring outside, but I can't sit in the locked office forever either. I again walk over to the door and I ask loudly if I can help him. This time he starts to sway back and forth violently. His arms are limp and they flail with his movements and slap against the glass. And then he tucks his chin to his chest and starts to chuckle. At this point, I'm out. I walk very quickly past him into the main lobby over to where the front desk guys are hanging out. I tell them that there's a guest who seems ill or something staring at me, and I ask them to call security. The front desk guy decides that he'll take care of it and walks with me back to the office. The guy is gone. I'm apologizing for the overreaction when I remember that I left the door unlocked. I tell the front desk guy this and he walks with me into the rear of the office. The door is ajar and there's a couple of brochures scattered on the floor, which is strange, but there isn't anyone there. I thank the hotel guy and pick up the brochures. As I look up to wave goodbye, I can see the front desk agent pause as he's walking away. He freezes and his face drops. I make eye contact and bolt out of the office. Sure enough, the man is crouching under my desk. Security came and escorted him out of the office. It turns out that he was a guest staying on the gold floor of the hotel, and he was running a high fever and taking some pretty intense medication for a mental illness. I felt bad for him, but I have always wondered exactly what he was going to do under that desk. I live in one of the most popular cities for students in my country. I rent an old and creaky house with 4 other people in a calm neighborhood with virtually no crime. As the term came to an end 2 weeks ago, 3 of my housemates left for Christmas and were not coming back until January. This meant that one of my housemates, Anna, and I had the house to ourselves, which was pretty nice. We were able to work on our assignments in the main living areas and not bother too much with cleaning up after ourselves. Anna often finishes work at 3 a.m., and I never bother with bolting the door at night. So last night, just before 11 p.m., I only locked the main door, turned off the lights in the kitchen, and went downstairs to my room, which is in the basement. As I didn't have the energy to do any more work, I ended up on YouTube watching random debates. I usually use my headphones, but as I couldn't find them anywhere that evening, I kept the volume very low. I had to add that I usually hang a thick scarf or towel on my window frame to keep the lights from coming through in the morning and prevent people from the outside looking into my room. Around midnight, I heard the front garden gate open and close. The area we live in can be windy at times, so I didn't think much of this, so I just continued watching the video. I then heard someone unlock the front door quietly. Anna would sometimes finish early and not tell anyone about it, so again, I just assumed it was her and she was trying not to make too much noise. I then heard Anna enter the house and lock the door, but I didn't hear her switching on any lights. That's weird, I thought, as Anna disliked sitting in the kitchen in the dark and would often turn them on and head to her room upstairs to change before coming back downstairs to make a quick snack. I paused the video to listen out for anything unusual, and I texted Anna to see if she had come home early, and if not, to see if her boyfriend Sam, who also has a key, had. For some reason, I started panicking a little bit and messaged my boyfriend to tell him that I could hear someone trying to walk quietly upstairs. My boyfriend tried to rationalize everything and blamed it on mice, since we had issues with them before. Or maybe the neighbors running up and down the stairs and me imagining that it was all happening in our house. Or maybe that it was really Anna or Sam. I agreed, but I kept listening out for anything weird. I heard someone sit by the kitchen table, move the chairs, and I assumed that it was indeed Sam. Anna replied 5 minutes later saying that no, she was not in the house and wouldn't be back until 4 a.m. And she messaged Sam and he said that he wasn't even in the same city and asked if everything was okay. Now I started panicking for real. My heart was pounding like crazy and I suddenly became aware of every single noise the person upstairs made. The person upstairs started moving again, but now they were in the living room, right above my room. I messaged my boyfriend and Anna and swore that someone was upstairs and that if they didn't hear from me in the next 5 minutes, they should call the police. My boyfriend told me to barricade my bedroom door with my bed or grab my phone and escape through my friend Chloe's bedroom window, since her room was also in the basement. And I could call the police from the street if I was too scared to do it inside the house, in case the person heard me. I was about to leave my room when I heard the staircase leading to the basement squeak. I quickly aborted the mission of trying to escape through Chloe's window, and instead I barricaded the door with my bed as quietly as possible. I dimmed the lights in my room and I messaged my boyfriend to call the police now, as the intruder was outside my bedroom. I could hear someone breathing and moving very slowly outside my door. I started looking for something to protect myself, but only found a tiny fruit knife and an empty vodka bottle. I went for the bottle and phone in my hand. The person entered Chloe's room, and after a few minutes, all of the noise stopped. I didn't even move an inch until I saw flashlights and heard people talking outside of my window. 4 policemen asked if I was okay and told me to open the main door as it was closed. This whole time, I thought that the door would be open. I said I was too scared to do so and instead gave them my house key through the small bedroom window. They searched the whole house before coming down to talk to me to inform me that they didn't find any signs of anyone breaking in. They asked me if I was 100% sure that I heard someone walking around our house and not the neighbor's house, as the main door was locked and the whole thing just didn't add up. I thought that I was going crazy by that point, but I apologized and said that I was 100% sure that someone was in our house. I think they felt sorry for me. I was flushed and was anxious and decided to search the house one more time, this time with me. When we searched the basement bedrooms again, one of the policemen noticed that the blinds in Chloe's bedroom were slightly open. He opened the whole curtain and saw that her flower pots had been moved to the side. The policeman then pressed on the window, only to have it open easily. Chloe's window opens to the outside, as in it's possible to shut from the front garden so it appears closed to outsiders. You need a key to open and close that window, and that key was now in the window frame. I knew that Chloe did not leave her window open. I watered her plants a few days prior to the event, and not only were the flower pots in a different place, the key to the window frame was lying on the outside. I explained that to the policeman, and I think they believed me, but as nothing was stolen or damaged, they couldn't do anything about it. They told me that they would watch the house overnight and I should give them a call if I heard anything suspicious. They also advised me to bolt the door and close all windows. Anna arrived 20 minutes later to make sure that I was okay. Anna and I couldn't sleep until 5 a.m., even though we both went to bed with frying pans and empty bottles of vodka. We tried to come up with a reasonable explanation. Although it is very easy to exit the house through Chloe's window, why would someone lock the door when breaking inside the house? That, and not knowing the intruder's intentions, creeps me out the most. My boyfriend is coming back to the city tomorrow to make sure that I'm not home alone until Christmas. Anna's boyfriend is staying in the house tonight as she's working late again, so I feel much better and much less shaky tonight. The following is a creepy and insightful comment left in response to this story. To the woman in the story, I worked at my local police department and now I work in the FBI. Intruders will often lock doors for multiple reasons. 1. If no one is home, the intruder will hear the victims unlocking the door. 2. Locking the door makes escape harder for the victim. 3. Locking the door also makes entry harder for the police. Now, personally, I have had intruders do this, but the only times they've done this is when they know they can escape from a different area, meaning they know the house well. Is it possible that the intruder could have been watching the house for several days or weeks? It sounds like he made entry knowing it was only 2 people inside the house. It also sounds like he could have known that Anna was at work at the time, locking the door so he could hear her enter and escape out of the basement window. I'm always concerned about these cases because I responded to a call similar in nature, except that he murdered the victim inside the house. Report anything to the police that looks out of place. I promise that we would rather respond to 1,000 false reports than a single serious one. Stay safe.